So then, finally got round to making a devlog. Sorry it's been so long guys, life's busy, 2 kids, full-time job and ezmuze, don't get much time to do anything other than code or parent. But just had a long week off work, allowed me to really concentrate on ezmuze, made some huge progress, really happy with where we're getting. So rather than me show my ugly face off, why don't we look at what I've achieved so far. So this little beastie here, this is the machine editor. This is a view that I expect most users won't really open up themselves, but I think most users, I'm fairly sure, most users will use the features that can be created in here, either factory presets or hopefully, if everything takes off well, what other users have created for them. What this allows you to do is create your own instruments. One of the limitations of ezmuze Plus was always that you were stuck with the loops. To empower you to do more in Pro, I needed you to be able to make your own loops. Now, VSTs exist and they're great and there's some phenomenal ones, but they are limited by the limitations of MIDI. They're pricey and a lot are very difficult to use. So, and the other issue is they don't work on Xbox, they don't work on Android, etc. I wanted a universal system that could be used on any platform. Now there is the LADSPA format, but it didn't really fit my needs, and this is pretty. I am very happy with this. So as you can see here, we have the control input. What that does is feeds in things from your loop sequencer, which doesn't exist yet, but we needed this first. So every time you hit a note, this will fire off, and so with the strength of the note, the pitch that you hit, this tells you the length of a beat. This is good for LFO effects. Voice position, that obviously starts at 0 when you hit a note and then keeps going. Global position, hit 0 when you start the song or when you first boot up, depending on whether it's in playback mode or not. Again, good for global LFO, so it's not tied to the position of the note where you hit it, but it's tied to the actual BPM, the pattern of the song. And you can see here we've dragged out a wire from amplitude to the amplitude of a sine generator. So a sine generator makes a nice simple tone. Not exactly exciting, we can hit different notes. As you can see, nice and basic. We can see here we've outputted it into an audio mixer. This is one of the areas that needs a bit of effort. There should be some limiting and compression going on in the mixer. Doesn't work properly yet, so we won't overload it too much. And then from the mixer, we can see we take the output, and we actually take 2 outputs from the output to the left and right. So this is a mono machine, and we get a stereo output because that's just the easiest way of working. You can see here we right click, add part, and we can very easily add more components. We're going to add a Martha later. We're going to kill out the sine generator for the moment. We're going to take the frequency from the control input. We're going to add a slider for our source, and then add another slider for the second source. We're just going to put that there. And then add a slider for the morph. This is nice because it morphs between the 2 inputs. So these sources come from a wave bank. That wave bank at the moment is hard coded with a couple of patches and samples. Volume comes from your amplitude. Unison, very broken at the moment, so we'll add a slider so we can turn it off. And that should be everything. Output to there. So very quickly we've got a noise out. As you can see, super simple to get something up and running really quickly. Obviously it's not the most advanced sound in the world, but it's the building blocks, and that's what this thing is all about. It's about building blocks. Very little components here. In fact, I will show you. So we'll take a basic maths and we'll have a halfer. So if I can't remember if I need to convert for this or not. It's been a while since I used it, but there's that note. I will remove this connection, put the frequency through the halfer. Boom, octave drop. So you can see these are very simple building blocks. So the limitation is more of what's in your imagination than the system, because everything is built out of very tiny bits. So let's show you something a little bit more advanced. We'll go into our utility. Then this is the AHDSR. AHDSR is attack, hold, decay, sustain, release. That's what changes an instrument from a to a boom. There are some bugs with this. There's bugs everywhere at the moment. I'm still very much working on this, but if we remove this, you'll see how easy it is to implement it. It might be a little bit more difficult to understand what it's doing, but it's easy to use it. And with ezmuze, that's always been the main principle. We don't mind about giving you a lot of power. It's good if we can give you a lot of power, but we want to make sure it's easy to use it. So position from the voice position, here we go, and we're just going to add sliders for each of these values. So here we can see we've added all the sliders for the AHDSR. Now I've let go of the button, you can hear it slowly releasing. So we reduce that, reduce it a bit more. So you can see very quickly we're starting to come up with a very unique sound. And the idea is you'll be able to sequence that sound with a pattern, and that will render as you sequence it. It will render to a WAV in memory, also saved out to disk, and then you'll be able to use it just like you use the loops in ezmuze. So I want to go through some of the more interesting development things that have been happening. This is mostly a one-man project. I have a little bit of assistance from James, or as you may know him, Hamster, but he is not a programmer. He's a musician, stroke video editor, stroke legend, stroke god. One of the few things he doesn't do is program, so unfortunately he can't help me with that. Luckily, I am very passionate about this stuff, and I now actually work in the industry thanks to ezmuze. So thank you guys for all the support. You got me a career. But anywho, so the first thing is the user interface. Now, one thing that's worth noting that people don't realise is the power of ezmuze Plus was never the audio. The loops were great, don't get me wrong, but the actual audio output of both Plus and Plus 2 were not great audio output. You were very limited. What made ezmuze great was the interface, and that I owe a huge debt of gratitude to Hamster for. He took my original idea, which if you've ever used ezmuze Breaks and House Edition, was pretty terrible, and he forced me to really work on the UI, and I think what we ended up with was beautiful, and not even just beautiful, but so intuitive. So I knew when working on Pro, audio came second. It came far more up the list than it did in the ezmuze Plus versions, because we have far less limits than we did in those times, and I'm a lot more skilled than I was back then. But user interface is number one. If people can't use this stuff, it's not going to work. Now, one of the problems we had with ezmuze Plus was I was a poor programmer, and the way the UI was built under the hood was an absolute nightmare. Whenever I had to do a bug fix, it was painful. And I knew going into this that I wanted something that was flexible, something that was easy for me to use to build UIs, so as I come up with new ideas, I could build them very quickly. And that meant probably a year's worth of development solidly on what became known as Breeze. Now Breeze is my UI system that I built for monogame, platform independent. What it is if you're nerdy, it's a MVVM, which is model view model platform that uses XML, very similar to XAML, but real time. So imagine WPF or WinRT, or even to some extent Angular, JS, but using game tech rather than event-driven tech. Now what we can do is collapse that out. We have our screens. Now each of these screens is a discrete screen in ezmuze. So if we go and look at the machine designer, what we've been looking at, we can see here we've got a XAML file, a code behind, and a view model. So if we look at the XAML, or sorry, XML, you've got this super nice layout. So we've got a couple of templates here, and here's the main body. So here we can see we've got a black background, then we've got some centered images, and then we've got some normal images. And these are the really fancy scrolling background, the little sine waves. And you can see here that their position is actually bound. What that means is, usually we're doing UI in a game, every frame of animation you have to say, put this thing at this position. And that's for 2D. 3D it's even more work, but 2D you say, put this texture at this position. And that's how ezmuze Plus did it. But this means I can say, right, I want this image here, and it needs to live at the position stored in this value. If we go into the view model, and find that value, we can see here, it's a little float rectangle, my own little design. Boom. That's it. That's the code to set it. We see, and here in the main update loop, every frame I move that position, I move it slightly. That's all I need to do. What this means is I may have spent a lot of time up front with the UI, but now that I'm actually getting down to brass tacks, actually getting some work done, actually starting to build out ezmuze, UI is almost invisible to me. I don't have to worry too much about how to lay things out because it's so easy for me to modify. Next thing I want to go over is the module system, which is all the things we were just looking at. I've managed to create a fairly simple system for me to build these. We go into song data, go into our modules. You can see here all the modules laid out. Let's take a nice simple one. Let's take the lerper. So here we can see the lerpers in the basic math group. Here's some inputs, here's some outputs. We get a couple of things, and we've got the name here, and we've got a unique GUI for it, so we can save it. We then reiterate what the input and outputs are, which is a bit of a shame, but it makes the code down here easier. And as you can see, the actual code that does the work is tiny. Really, really tiny. And that's what really pushes this forward. I can make many plugins really quickly. I just need to think of the plugins, and I should be able to do it in a way that once ezmuze releases, if someone says to me, it'd be really cool if we had a module that did this thing, I should be able to add that, release an update, boom, everyone's got it. It won't affect what they've already got. So that's been a brief overview of ezmuze, where we are with the app itself and where the development is, some interesting things in the development. I hope you found this interesting, and I hope to not leave it too long before I make the next one. Thanks guys.